शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So today we will have our last class of this 5-class segment that we decided to do after the Brahma Sutra revision. We thought that we would spend some time looking at the Pancakshri Vidya, the Namah Shivaya. So what we did based on this very beautiful, very important text is that we did 4 of the 9 aspects of looking at Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. So there were 9 altogether given by Sri Padmapadacharya ji, and then we had time to do 4 of them. So we did that. In addition to that, this book, which has been composed by a combination of Sri Datta and Sri Maheshacharya ji, has some other parts to it that we are just including in this small segment of 5 classes. And those are as follows. After the 9 different ways of looking at Namah Shivaya, there's a kind of like a flow chart on page 70 that kind of summarizes all of that. So there is nothing new, but it's a structured way of looking at it. Then there was a section which said that in the explanation of the 9 different ways of looking at Namah Shivaya, an explanation that was composed by Sri Datta, Harinama Datta, he had written a commentary called Subodhini. So the next section of this book was to show that the Subodhini is really the explanation of Brahma Sutra. So the rest of the book is to show the consistency of thought and methodology between Namah Shivaya and various other texts, all Vedantic texts. The first one is Brahma Sutra. So the first thing he did was he says what is called Subodhini me Sharirika Artha Pradarshanam, to show how the Subodhini actually gives the meaning of the Brahma Sutra. So this is the next topic. Then after that, there were a series of segments. And by the way, this book is not composed as well as it should have been in terms of giving. I don't mean the the content of it, but just the form of, giving page numbers, making sure that each new segment starts with a title. All of that I think is missing. So anyway, so it has some issues with respect to that. But the content is very beautiful. So the rest of the content was now looking at the tatparya of the various texts and seeing the similarity of the approach. So the tatparya means the central theme, as we've been seeing for the last few classes. Is it in this whole study? In fact, this is the one we should look at it in our life also. So this is not just academic. This is something that we have to look at. What is the main purpose of our living? This has to be really thought about. And, we looked at that in Bhagavad Gita last class. So the Bhagavad Gita has many topics. This Karma Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, and it has Bhakti, Jnanam, and Paramatma Vishwarupam. So many different topics and so on and so forth. They are indicative. Bhagavad Gita in that sense is indicative of our lives. So if we just examine each one of our lives and say, what is the main purpose of my life? Is it to just live a happy life? Is it my role to fit in with my environment? Is it to improve the world? Is it to have some children that are born and I can give them some education, some shiksha, some help? Am I a member of the society? So there, if you took a paper and pencil and say, what is what's called uddeshya. So uddeshya means, what is my goal? What am I doing? What is the main thing that I am doing? You will find that it is not easy to find that. And you find that people are all kind of going in different directions, they're going in circles. You meet each other and say, how is it going? It says, good. Then you part, then you come back later and find out, how is it going now? And he says, well, I don't know. These are so confused. The whole life is nothing but a set of confusing objectives. And we don't come to any final conclusion as to what it is. Because you find that people who have really accomplished a lot finally have to leave all this accomplishment, and we don't even know what the next step is. Total confusion. The confusion in the sense, not really, that may be a strong word, but it means there is no tatparya nishchaya. There is no ascertainment in saying, this is where I'm going. And then you can find that there are various ways to look at it and so on. So for instance, if you are, I think we have talked about this example. This was given by Swami Viditatmanandaji long time ago. I remember that. I made an impression on me. That if you get a new car, and you want to take your family in the car or some friends to show them what a nice car it is, does it matter where you go? Because your entire attention is towards the car. And whether all you need to do is to make sure that you come back home, you don't get lost. But other than that, you can take a left turn, you can go straight, you can even show them, okay, let's go on the freeway, or you can take some back roads, you can take some very curvy roads like we have in our neighborhood here. Dangerous, really, especially with the bicyclists. You can do all of that. It doesn't really matter where you go. It's all kind of like semi-enjoyment, semi-satisfaction, whatever you may call it. But suppose you have to go to catch a plane and you encounter some obstacles on the way. Suddenly you find the road is closed because on Saturday morning the road is being repaved. Nobody told you that and you didn't find out. Now you have to go to the plane and it's only an hour away. Let me shut this off. And you're getting late. So now you take some detours. But while you're taking detours, your objective is very clear. Opposite of the other case where you bought a new car and just the journey itself is really all that you want. You don't have any objectives. In fact, the only objective is to share your pleasure of buying a new car with your family. That's it. There's no other objective. Here this is very different because you have to catch a plane and you have to make sure that you get there on time. And you don't know, there is a lot of uncertainty as to where the detours are and so on. And you're looking at your clock and you're saying, oh my gosh, I mean, this happened to us. I remember that one. This is a real life case that I had. But there it is what is called Tatparya Nishchaya. This is what I'm doing. Similarly, in our life, we don't really have Tatparya Nishchaya until we come across the instructions from the Shastra. And the Shastra says, are you listening? Let me tell you what your real objective is. You may not even know what your objective is, but you really you are behaving in that direction. So really speaking, it's rearranging all of these variables so that it makes sense in your life. It doesn't mean that you won't have obstacles. We didn't say that. There may be some unknown obstacles and so on, just like in the case of going to catch a plane. The road is being resurfaced. We didn't say that. But your objective becomes very clear to you. This is what is called Tatparya Nishchaya. So the Tatparya Nishchaya of all these other texts that we are talking about, and we will continue to do that today, and the Tatparya Nishchaya of our life. Tatparya Nishchaya means the ascertainment of the real goal is the same. It is the same. Asti bhati priyam nama chaiti panchakam adyatrayam brahmarupam jagatrupam tatodvayam. Or you can say ahamasmi aham bhami kadachit nahi apriya jivo brahma eva natu aparaha. That is the real tatparya. And my tatparya is that I am unconditionally free. I don't realize it, and I need to ascertain that tatparya. And as as part of that, rearrange my life so that everything that I do becomes part is it then even the detours will have a will see, isn't that right? Because when you're taking a detour, you're not just sort of relaxed, okay, let's see what happens. No, your final goal becomes imperative. You tolerate the impediments, that's no question about it. There's nothing else you can do about it. The authorities have made some kind of silly signs. It says turn left, now you go here, and all kinds of things. But that you have to do. But the objective is very clear. Similarly here also, this is very nice that Sri Harinamadatta has composed varieties of different ways to show that the Tatparya Nishchaya is very consistent. How do you find what is the Tatparya Nishchaya? This is what we are doing. This is what we are doing. So we already went through in the Bhagavad Gita, and we're going to do that today for some of the Upanishads. How do you define what the Tatparya is? It's not a question of faith. Not a question of just faith. It's a question of Shraddha culminating in Jnanam, by knowledge. This is the Tatparya. And before you are looking at the Tatparya, you may have to have Shraddha. Shraddha means that the clarity which is yet to come, but I am working towards the clarity. This is what called Shraddha is. So it means verifiable belief, not unverifiable belief. So you need to have Shraddha while the Tatparya is going on, but then it starts to really make sense. Yes, this is also consistent. That's what Swamiji also said. That is what Sri Adi Shankara said. All the Acharya is exactly the same thing. So this is the very beautiful composition with respect to that. So in that section, last section of this text, he goes into the Tatparya Nishchaya. He calls it Tatparya Nirnaya. Same thing. Nirnaya and Nishchaya are the same thing. By the Brahma Sutra. Number one. Then the second thing is, he talks about the Tatparya Nishchaya in the 10 main Upanishads, the ones that are commentary by Sri Adi Shankara, as you know. Then the third one is the Gita. And because of the brevity, we decided to take the Gita in the last class, and we put all of the Shadlinga Vichara for the Tatparya Nishchaya. So that was an important thing. Upakrama, Upasamhara, Abhyasa, Apurvata, then Arthavada, then Upapatti. All of that we did. And so that is the filter. That's the filter that you have to see. Everything has to match that filter. And so we did that. So here the filter is done with number one with Brahma Sutra, second one is the Upanishad, third one is the Gita. So those are the next sections. Then in the end, what he has done, he has looked at the structure of the Brahma Sutras, Adhyayas, Padas, and Adhikaranas, and gone through systematically into the whole thing. In fact, I think if I had really seen this and thought about it, this is what I would have done. Remember, we took a few classes on looking at how to analyze the Brahma Sutra and so on. That would have been more comprehensive if we had done this. So that's also there on the end of this book. We of course don't have the time to do that at this point, but I'm just pointing out this is where this is what the composition of this very beautiful text is. So these are the various topics that he has given. Alright, so now let us go into today's class, which is, as we did in the Bhagavad Gita, let us do the Tatparya Nishchaya of the Upanishads. And he has given the Tatparya Nishchaya of all 10 Upanishads. Depending on how much time we take, we will probably do 3 or 4 of them today. And as we do that, I really have a suggestion for you. And see if it makes any sense to you and if some of you want to do this. I would like one or more of you to compose a small text which the main topic will be the Tatparya Nishchaya of the Upanishads. If you want to include the Bhagavad Gita, please do so also, but at least the Upanishads. So what would need to be done is, and all those are given in here, we are going to go through 4 out of the 10 today. But what you need to do, and of course it's very, very short. He has just given some hints as to this is Upakrama, this is Upasamhara, this is Abhyasa, this is Apurvata, etc., as we will do today. But it would be nice if we have a small booklet that explains this very clearly with full shlokas that are cited in the Tatparya Nishchaya. So what that would require is knowledge of Sanskrit in the Devanagari script and access to all the 10 Upanishads. This is what it would take. What would come out, I think, is a beautiful booklet that first discusses what are the elements of Tatparya Nishchaya. And we've already gone through that. You can go through some of your notes in the Brahma Sutra that Swami Paramarthananda had provided. You can go back to the class notes there. So have a first segment on defining what the filter is. Then you go Upanishad by Upanishad and show how the same methodology applies to the various Upanishads. And you can write it in English if you want to. I think it would be nice if you have some small commentary, but you don't need to have that. Or perhaps what you can do is to do simply a shloka translation of the various Upanishad verses that you are including. If you did that, this would be a good contribution that people will like and understand and be very useful to them. It's not a huge effort. A single person can do it, but it does mean someone that will compose it using the Sanskrit software on the page. And so more than one people can get together if you want to. You don't even need to know Hindi because there is very little Hindi in there. These are just straight references. But you do need to know Sanskrit and Devanagari. And if one of you or more of you or more than one of you can get together and would like to do this, this will be very good sadhana for you. And it will all be a contribution. I think that would be a very nice, so that's my suggestion to you. All right, let's go into the main topic today. This there in page 80. So in this tour of the 10 Upanishads, those are Ishavasya Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad. This is the normal sequence of study anyway. Mundaka Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. These are the 10 Upanishads that he has given. So out of these, I have chosen a few that we are familiar with. So let's go over that, and I'll do it rather quickly because of the time constraint, just to show you how this is, how the same Shadlinga Vichara applies to the Upanishad as it did to the Bhagavad Gita. So the first one we will do is Kena Upanishad. Okay? So let's do that. All right. So let's start with that. Now I have to find, this is going to be messy because I have a book with me that has all the 108 Upanishads. There's 108 Upanishads that are considered to be worth reading at some point in one's life. And out of that, one segment has all of the major ones. So this is for those of you that speak, that have Hindi as the language. I've had this book for roughly about 15-20 years, and I think it is available. I got this from New Delhi. So 108 Upanishads, and the beauty is that each of the Upanishads, Vakyas, all the shlokas have a Hindi translation, very simple Hindi translation. So that's a book which is very useful. It's all at one place. It does not have the Shankara Bhashya. There are other books with Shankara Bhashya, but this one is simply the Upanishad shlokas. So let's look at Kena Upanishad 70 to 74. Okay. So he says, Upakrama. Upakrama means what? The beginning of the main topic. What is the tatparya of the main topic? To ascertain that, to do the nirnaya of that, where do we find that? So we find in the body of this complicated, sophisticated text, somewhere where you should see where the beginning statement is. This is called Upakrama. And then at the very end it says, this is what we talked about. This is the main topic. That is called Upasamhara. So this packaging of the beginning and the end is called Upakrama Upasamhara. So now let's look at the Upakrama. So this second verse of the Kena Upanishad itself is the Upakrama. So because as you know, we've just gone through that. The first one was Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha Kena pranaha prathama praiti yuktaha Keneshitam vachamimam vadanti chakshuhu shrotram kau devo yunakti. So this was the question by the student. The answer by the teacher is Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Manaha Yad Vachoha Vachagumsaha Pranasya Pranaha Chakshusascha Chakshu Atimuccha Dhiraha Pretya Asmat Lokat Amrito Bhavanti. So he says the Tatparya is Manas Shrotrasya Shrotram, the ear of the ear. Without having the ability to hear, you hear. This is the hallmark of Brahman. This is the hallmark of Atma. I can hear without hearing, like I do in the dream. Amazing. Just incredible. So this is Upakrama. Alright, then the Upasamhara is one that we talked about a lot, which is this is so confusing because I have so many different. This is, anyway, this one I happen to know, so we can just go straight to it. Yeah, here's the Upasamhara. Pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate amritam. This Upasamhara means that this is what we talked about, Shrotasya Shrotram. Now, how is it an Upasamhara? I mean, we can just pause and just look at it. I don't have time to really teach. I'm just giving you a tour of this. It's not teaching. By the way, the same thing is true for Brahma Sutra also. I felt that the entire treatment of the Brahma Sutra and also all the subsequent ones is not really teaching. Although we try to do it, it is really more of a tour. The teaching is done by pausing and looking at the truth contained in one or two texts. This is what teaching is all about. As we did in Kenopanishad and all the other ones, Mandukya and Karika and so on. So this whole Brahma Sutra was just to make sure that we have covered the basic elements of the Prasthanatraya. But it's not really teaching per se. You get some clarity. It's more mananam, not shravanam. So here also, here he says that the Upasamhara is Shrotrasya Shrotram, the one which is without, one that appears to be a doer, but it is not a doer. And so, Pratibodha Viditam Matam means, don't you see that all of the various thoughts and actions are going on without the active involvement of the Atma. This is the beauty of the Atma is. Like, you cannot have a dream without the basic consciousness that you are. And yet, throughout the whole dream, you don't know that you are the consciousness. This is what it's all about. In the dream, you can never tell. You cannot see, you cannot have a dream where you wake up in the dream and say, I am the consciousness. That cannot be. But in the waking state, you can do that. In the waking state, you can say, my goodness, everything that's going on must have me, and I am not involved with that. So this is the basic tatparya. So anyway, so the upasamhara is pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam vindate. Right, then, see, I want to make sure that I quickly go through this. We have, then the next one is abhyasa. So abhyasa means then you re-emphasize. Main topic cannot just be taken up once and that's left. No. The whole document revisits it to emphasize this is what we are talking about. So it's called abhyasa. So abhyasa doesn't mean mere repetition. Mere repetition is that the same shloka appears in the beginning and the same shloka appears in the end. That would be mere repetition. This is not mere repetition. This means consistency of importance. And so it is all full of it. Kenopanishad is a very small one. In Kathopanishad it's very big. Chandogya is even, so abhyasa means you can have here, just if for those of you that are, if you are interested in my proposition to take up writing this, you don't have to just have one abhyasa, you can cite, so that will be your own creativity. You and I can both work on that if you have any questions. The abhyasa means many, many times. Kenopanishad is a very small Upanishad, so there may not be that many, but it's there. So here the abhyasa is a set of verses actually. Yad vacha anabhyutitam yena vak abhyudyate tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yadidam upasate. This is number 1 and 4. Then the next one. Yan manusana manute yena ahuhu manomatam tadeva brahmatvam viddhi nedam yaditam upasate. Next one. Yat chakshusha. All these are abhyasa. Abhyasa. Okay, so the abhyasa is done. Then comes, this is, you can call it my favorite discovery. Is my own personal discovery of what apurvata really means. And that was made clear by Swami Maheshanandji once I understood that. Now I can see it all over the places. So apurvata means, as you know, I'm just giving you a revision of the definition of apurvata. Apurvata means never before have you understood that part. This is something brand new. Well, even the other things are also brand new, shrotrasya, shrotram, etc., etc. But within that topic, something which is amazing and amazingly true is called apurvata. One that does not, it's not as though you had seen it before. This is something brand new that you had never encountered before in your life. It's called apurvata. So that apurvata is na tatra chakshu gacchati, na vag gacchati, no mano na vidmaha, na vijanimaha, na tatra chakshu gacchati. This is the, you look at the common apurvata between all of these texts, and that means you cannot see it. This is the apurvata. I'm going to tell you about something that you cannot see. This is the apurvata. It can be known without seeing, without experiencing. You cannot experience it. It is the very nature of the experience. This is what one we have to see. This is called apurvata. So, in the Bhagavad Gita also he says, I know everyone, but no one knows me, as we went through in the last class. Exactly the same principle. So here what we said was that you can say that from any standpoint, not any, but two standpoints. One is Ishvara, Paramatma, Jivatma, and Paramatma. From both standpoints you can say that. What Paramatma is pointing out as the very lingam for this apurvata, that listen, I know everything that I have created, but no one knows me. He says, I can't understand. This is just amazing to me. I wonder what I have created. The created cannot see the creator. That's all. That doesn't mean that the creator is not there, but it's just that the method of seeing things does not apply to it. There's a different method of seeing it. This is the apurvata. So anytime you say, na tatra chakshu gacchati, na janami, I don't know, I cannot know this, there the mind doesn't go, the vak doesn't go. Really? And yet you're talking about something which is there. How? This is called apurvata. So that's what it is. Then the next one is phalam. Yeah, in phalam means because the importance of what we are talking about. What is so great about it? When you talk about tatparya nishchaya, we must ascertain and so on. It must be meaningful. It must have tremendous benefit for me, not just ordinary benefit for it. Because if you are going on and saying, let me tell you about this, you don't know about this, etc., it better be something major. This is called phalam. So where is that phalam? So here he says, a very beautiful the last ones on this one. He says, Iha chet avedit atha satyam asti, na chet iha avedit mahati vinashti, bhuteshu bhuteshu vichitya dhiraha, pretya asmat lokat amrita bhavanti. This is one of the phalam. I would even say that, good, it's the same thing. The same thing is given in the very second verse that we took as upakrama. Chakshushascha chakshuhu iti atimuchya dhiraha pretya asmat lokat amrita bhavanti. Almost complete repetition of the same word. That is the phalam. So if you ever decide to do this task that I suggested, if any one of you wants to do it, then you can bring this out as well. So it doesn't have to be purely what Sri Harinam Datta said. You can add to it and say, by the way, the phalam can also be taken as this verse or that verse. That you can do. Then Arthavada. Here the Arthavada is, Arthavada means praise. Because obviously you have to, the main topic has to be, what's the word? It has to be played up for you, because you're sort of thinking, is this the main one? Okay. Well, of course it is, because it is where the praise is. So in this Kena Upanishad, the Arthavada is not in the khandas that we saw. It is in the story at the end, which we did not specifically do, but we know about this. The story is that, as you know, that all the devatas were congratulating each other on the victory and saying, we are great people. We have worked hard and we defeated the Rakshasas, the Asuras. Oh, how nice things are. We are so fortunate. And thank you everybody for this. They were all having fun and then really celebrating their victory. So here Ishvara thought, this is not right. They have forgotten the main reason that they were victorious, which is me. I am the one that made them victorious. And they don't even recognize me. How sad. So to test that and to tell them that, he appears as a yaksha. As you know, I'm not telling you the whole story, you already know this, as a yaksha. All of a sudden there's this small thing with glowing beautifully. No one had seen anything like this. So they all said, who is this? So they sent various devatas to investigate who this person is. And finally, one by one they went and they came back and said, I can't find it. I told him to burn this piece of grass. He told me to burn this piece of grass, and I am the very Agni and I could not burn it. There's something funny going on in here. This is not an ordinary person. Finally, Indra goes. When Indra goes, the Yaksha itself disappears. Now Indra says, this is the height of being funny. At least the others had that, but even the person itself disappears when I approach. What's the reason for that? So he approaches his teacher, Uma. Uma means the Prakriti itself, the consort of Shiva, the whole Prakriti, representing the whole Prakriti. And so he says, oh Devi, I am confused. I thought I knew everything in my life. Who is this? Then she says, this is Brahman. This is Ishvara himself who created you, who created the conditions for you to be successful. Do you know who he is? Do you have any idea the mahima of that person? And explains all of that. So that story is the Arthavada. Kham Brahma. Brahmaha. Anyway, so there's a reference to it. This is the Arthavada in the Kena Upanishad. In other Upanishads, you may have specific shlokas that give the Arthavada. So that is Arthavada. Then the last one is Upapatti. Upapatti means that it must be logical. You cannot just completely ignore it. So Upapatti here is 2, 3. So in this way, this is kind of an extension of the Apurvata but given in a logical form. That is, yasya amatam tasya matam. Matam tasya na veda saha. Vigyatam vijanatam vigyatam avijanatam. So one, I would say that if any one of you wants to do this, one of the advantages would be that you focus in on the meaning of this. It's not just a listing of all these various shlokas, but you pause and you think about it. That's how you become more conversant in the details of the subject matter. And many of our Swamis actually find that to be a very useful thing. Swami Vidyatatmanandaji was telling me, as Swami Tattvavedanandaji, Paramarthanandaji, all of them, they really enjoyed writing, either transcribing Swami Dayanandji's lectures or some other one, but writing it down, because what writing does is to make you to be absorbed in what you are doing in a very, very clear manner. Otherwise, the writing doesn't come very well. So in the process, you become closer to the subject matter. So I found the same thing when I had done the Kaivalya Upanishad with Swami Vidyatatmanandaji. With your help, many of you had transcribed, but then I really edited it and so on. It was a very major effort and took so much of my time that I said, I don't think I'll have the time to do this again. With all my worldly duties, my family, and aim for seva and so on. So I decided not to repeat it, but it was very useful. Kaivalya Upanishad is very close to me because I participated in it. So anyway, the logic is contained in here. I won't go any further in that. Alright, so we have done the first Upanishad, which is Kena Upanishad. Let's go to the next Upanishad. Gosh, at this rate we may not be able to do all four. We'll see. Katha Upanishad. So where is the Katha Upanishad in this book? Oh, so it's preceding the Kena Upanishad, 50 to 69. This is a much bigger Upanishad. There. All right. Here is the Upakrama. This is shloka number 20 on Adhyaya 1. Ye yam prete vichikitsa manushya. Ye yam prete vichikitsa manushye. Astiti eke nayam astiti chaike. Etat vidyam anushishtahatvam tvaya aham varanam esha vastritiyaha. So this is the third boon that Nachiketa asked from Lord Yama. Because remember that Lord Yama was away for 3 nights. And Nachiketas went to Yamaloka because of the shrapa from his father. So his father said, "Go away from here, I hope you die." And he just said it in jest. He was angry at something, angry at Nachiketas, but Nachiketas said, "Okay, I'm ready to die." So his father said, No, I don't mean it. Not a real shrapa, that was just a way of saying it. He says, "Father, do you know who you are?" ordinary Brahmana. You are a well-known Brahmana that everybody follows. A Brahmana never says things that he cannot fulfill. Cannot say that in... There's no casualness for a Brahmana. For the other jatis maybe, but not for the top jati, which is Brahmana. So you better fulfill that. Otherwise you will have a reputation. Oh, that guy, he just says things he doesn't mean. Do you ever want that to happen to you? He says, no, I don't want that to happen. So he says, I'm okay. Just let me die. So he went to Yamaloka, and there Lord Yama was not there. Dharmaraja. Yama is called Dharmaraja. Dharmaraja means who always follows the karma and karma phala as enjoined by Ishvara. That is the dharma of Ishvara. Everyone must fulfill their destiny. So Yamaraja makes sure that he's on the job. There's a lot of people that die every second. He's got his army all over and saying, that guy's next. Go get him. This person is next. He's called Dharmaraja because he has to fulfill the dharma, the very sequence of the very order of the whole universe. So it so turns out that he himself had gone on some assignment. Maybe there had to be an army of people that needed to be killed. I don't know. He was gone for 3 nights. And in the meantime, Nachiketas knocked on the door and said, I'm looking for Lord Yama. So the wife of Lord Yama said, he's not here for... So he says, okay, I'll just wait outside. And so he waited for 3 nights. And as soon as Lord Yama came home, his wife said, do you know what you've done? You know who this guy is? He's a Brahmana, son of this famous guy. You have kept him out for 3 days. And you're going to get a big papa. Forget about papa for others. You yourself will get a papa. The Yama thought, I'm not going to get a papa, but I still need to help whatever. So he goes to the person, he says, forgive me, I'm sorry I was out for 3 days. I didn't know you were here. But what can I do? So he says, for each of the nights I will give you a boon. Whatever you ask for, you please ask for and I will give it to you. I have that power. So he gives different boons. First of all, let my father be okay. He's feeling so bad about leaving me, etc., etc. He gives them. Then the last one is this one. He says, Varanam Esha Varas Tritiyaha. This is the third of the 3 varas. What is it? Ya iyam prete vichikitsa manushye astiti eke nayam astiti eke tat vigyam anushishtaha tvaya aham. He says, what I want to know is, people say that after death you are no longer there. You get destroyed after death. This in fact is the prevailing wisdom. If you interview all this, what's the population of the world now? I think it was 6 billion at one time, maybe it's now much more than that, say 7 or 8 billion. Suppose you conducted a survey Like I did a survey, I hope you had a chance to participate about what the next topic will be. Suppose you did a survey of 8 billion people, every one living human being, no matter where they are, Africa, Europe, India, South America, doesn't matter, entire population, and said, I have a question, and only one question. What do you think happens to a person after he dies? Okay, so you have two choices. In fact, this is what you can say. You can say you have two choices. Okay, so one choice is that the person gets completely destroyed. Okay, second choice is that the person does not get destroyed. He's there somewhere. This is what he says. Astiti eke. They are there. Nayam astiti cha eke. Some people say, no. What? How could this is one life? He says, this is the samshaya. So what will happen is, I think what will happen is that out of the 8 billion people, there may be a third choice. And that would be, I don't know. There's no way of knowing. So then you compile all the replies and you can say, some people say yes. So if you were born in India, 99% of the people will say yes. They don't know where we will be, but they'll say yes, we'll be there. This is the funny part about India. In other parts, people will say, I don't know, or they'll say no. Gone is gone. So he says this is the samshaya. Can you remove, samshaya means a doubt, uncertainty. So he says, my third boon is if you can remove this uncertainty because you alone know what's going on. You are the emissary of Ishvara that is responsible to conduct all the dharma, all the people's death. You know exactly what happens to a person after death. You are the one who is going to be able to tell me. I don't know. This is my third vara. This is this is called upapatti. Sorry, where are we? No. This is called upakrama. Yeah, upakrama. This is the beginning. So what is the truth? And then there is a verse which talks about Angushtamatra Purusha. Angushtamatra. That this is the Upasamhara. Angushtamatra Purusha Antaratma Sada Jananam Hridaye Sannivishta. He says that Purusha, that Jivatma never dies. It's always there. So this is the Upasamhara of the whole thing. Then you have the various abhyasa. Na jayate, na mriyate, same thing as in the Bhagavad Gita. It's the same Purusha is not made up of something that can fall apart. Akasha cannot fall apart. Weather can fall apart. Pressure can fall apart. But the sky itself is away from that. It is where all the forces are. By itself is not the result of the forces. Forces means that you have high pressure, low pressure, rain, ice, snow, all those kinds of things. They are the various ways, but those do not apply to this space. They are all contained in the space. See, that's interesting. You cannot have Vayu and all the other things unless space is there. So even though they are contained in the space, but they are not touching the space. They cannot touch the space. Space is something at a higher level. Same thing we have to understand about the Atma. Everything is contained in me, and yet they do not touch me, like a dream. So these are the various abhyasas. Then apurvata, 6:12. The way I've done this, it gets very confusing because they're all mixed up together. So anyway, the Apurvata, I cannot exactly find the verse there I can recite. But it says, Na eva vacha na manasa. Same thing. You cannot directly say this is the Atma. You have to do it in an implied way. Why? Because it is not something which is vyakta. It is avyakta. It is a very important thing to really grasp your mind around. I am, but not visible. I am behind all visibility. I am the very content of visibility. So it's like saying, I know you're talking about a ring and you were talking about a bracelet, but where is gold? So you have to say, my gosh, the ring is the gold. The bracelet is the gold. The gold is not a specific vastu like a ring or a bracelet. It is the very content of it. So that is the apurvata. Then the phalam. And various that amrita bhavanti, amrita bhavanti, amrita bhavanti. You become timeless. Yes, Swami Dayananji used to say this so well. He says, sometimes whenever you say amrita bhavanti, you have a confusing thought that I will be there forever. And it is true you'll be there forever, but how? It's somehow you feel that I, as a person with the personality and my ability to transact and so on, I want to be there forever without death approaching me, affecting me. Well, no, that is not Amrita Bhavan. That Amrit we cannot. So this is what is called Apekshika Amritatvam. Apekshika means relatively. You can say that I can live for a long time. So these are the various siddhis. When you read the autobiography of a yogi, so these are yogic principles. So Sri Yukteswara, I believe, was one of the names of his teachers. Apparently he lived for 1,000 years. How he can live for 1,000 years, I have no idea. What happens to his body? Already my body is falling apart just in a few years. How is that possible? But the Siddhis say, yes, it's very possible. You hardly don't even breathe very much. You can, and all that's possible. But at one day or the other it will end. So this Amritatvam Vindate is not like that. It means that your Swarupa as Satyam Jnanam Anantam has no approach to any changes. The change cannot approach you. That's what I meant to say, not no approach. Any change, leave aside mrityu, cannot do anything to space, cannot burn it. So that's what the palam is. Then there is Arthavada, and also Upapatti. I won't go into all of that. So we didn't really have any time to do more than not even a complete 2 of them. So now it is time to just wrap up. And anyway, I think that if we made some contribution in this class, is that we become aware of the various texts that touch upon various aspects of Vedanta, and you may have an opportunity when you retire or whatever time you have, to really go through all of this. This became apparent to me when I was going through the course with Swami Dayanandji, because it became very apparent to me that the subject matter is so vast and so beautiful, so meaningful, that I will never, even then when I was like 38 or 40 years old, I was in the late 30s when I was studying with, it was the mid 30s when I started with Swami Chinmayanandji, and once I got really into it took me 3-4 years to kind of rearrange my life. Then I went to the ashram and so on. I was not yet 40. But even at that time it became very clear to me, because of the exposure to the various texts and so on, that I will have a material that will not I get bored with until I'm 100 years old. I remember that. And indeed this is happening. It is happening. I have to really pretend. I get so many requests from people and saying, have you read this book? You've got to read this book, like movies also. And it's a very funny thing, because I have to be very, very polite and say, oh yeah, that's a very important book. I will do that. I will do that. I have no time, no matter how good the book is. All I want to do is what's going on in the world. I can do that in 10 minutes of just looking at the net. I'm done. All this controversy in India that is happening with Nupur Sharma and so on, I'm very much aware of that because all it takes me is while I'm having my breakfast or something, I'm also looking at the stories. I'm done with. That's it. But the material for study is so vast. There's so much to really to look forward to, and especially if you learn Sanskrit, then you have. What happened to my laptop? I guess I left it back on my other room. I thought I had it. Oh, you know what? I left it for charging. So I'll go get it. Well, let me say a prayer, then I'll go get my laptop. Om Asatoma Satgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. I'll be right back. Sorry. So, Keshav, I'm not quite sure exactly what you are saying. What you might do is just send me an email. And if you want to just, I think meeting in person and so on will be difficult because of my impending trip to the ashram and coming back from there. So, but if you can just tell me exactly what you had in mind, I'll be happy to review it for you. All right, very good. Good to see you all. So, I think we'll have a long break after this. I had mentioned it to you that after I review all of the uh, answers to the survey, which I will do now, then I will make some preliminary plans. Also, with respect to how we are going to go forward with the Arsha Vidya Center, whether we will meet or just continue to do that on online and so on. So I'll review all of that, discuss that with Swamiji as a kind of a bouncing off of some ideas with him, and then I will inform you. And it's very possible that we may not even meet until the middle of July, so there's going to be a very long absence per se. And it's very possible, which I'm thinking of, that maybe we should just meet in person once in Milpitas as a group. And I will present all the ideas to you and get a first-hand report back from you, and also go forward with you haven't really met in person for a long time. Hopefully you will all agree. So either Sanatana Dharma Kendra or some other place we can meet as soon as possible, as soon as we arrange it. And then after that, we will resume the next phase of our teaching per se. So that's what I'm thinking of. So after this is the last class. Not quite sure when we will meet again. Okay. All right. Very good. Hari Om.